Hey gang, what's going on? I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're having a good week. I want to talk about trades a little bit here because when the lockout's over, and this is particularly obviously pertaining to the Yankees, Brian Cashman's going to have to be really aggressive in the free agent market and in trades. But his best work tends to be in trades in the offseason. So I got three teams that represent good fits for multiplayer trades, which kind of is perfect for the Yankees because they have multiple holes to fill. And with a lot of the heavy top big names being already signed in free agency, the list of players that are available to the Yankees are kind of getting shorter by the day, even though there's nothing really going on in the lockout, but there was a lot of aggressive moves before it happened. So, they're going to have to come out the gates punching and swinging real hard. So before I get to this list, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you like stuff like this. If you want really good baseball content, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification so you don't miss out on things like this. And by the way, I want to give a special shout out to Hillel K. Thanks for having me on your channel. Hillel's a young up-and-coming YouTuber as well, and he's a young kid, but he's got a good baseball mind. And appreciate you having me on. We had a nice conversation. I'm going to put the link to the video we had down below, so take a look at that. And please support his channel by subscribing. But let's get to this list. Okay, my first team is the Arizona Diamondbacks, and this is a trade without having to get a Ketel Marte. Now Marte would be nice, but there are other guys out there that would not represent the Hall. And and I've mentioned Seiya Suzuki recently as somebody maybe potentially for center field. So he would be a little bit more of an effective option for the Yankees than a Ketel Marte. But there are two guys that the Yankees could get, and two of them are Carson Kelly, catcher, and I've mentioned him before, and Zach Gallen, young starting pitcher. They need another starting pitcher, I think two actually, and they need a catcher at some point. There is no replacement option for Gary Sanchez, after this season. And they did tender him a contract because there's no other options out there. The other guys that were already gobbled up in free agency, and guys like Jacob Stallings were traded. So that was a frustrating part of the Yankees' inactivity with regards to catcher. But here, keep in mind, Gary Sanchez has one more year left. After this year, the Yankees don't really have anybody in the farm that represents an obvious upgrade, and Kyle Higashioka is kind of a lifetime backup catcher. So Carson Kelly would be a good catching option here. And somebody that the rotation and the majority of them actually want to throw to on a regular basis. And he's a more consistent, better game caller behind the backstop. So that's something we need. And he's got a relatively consistent offensive profile. His ceiling isn't as high as Sanchez, but we don't need it to be. We've got plenty of other bats. All right, and Zach Gallen will represent another starting pitcher. Will be somebody to fit in right behind Cole as a nice number two, and who's young, controllable, and has quite a few years left before he becomes a free agent. So these guys right here are addressing catching and pitching in the same trade. And this trade would not require a haul. Yeah, it might require, an Oswald Peraza or somebody like that, but it's not going to require Jason Dominguez or an Anthony Volpe. And personally, I don't have Volpe in any trade proposals at all. He's an unmovable for me, unless the odd scenario where Juan Soto becomes available, which I doubt tremendously. I think Washington's going to want to build around him. Volpe's a no-no for me. So that's the first trade, okay? Second trade involves the Kansas City Royals. They have a couple of players that would represent value for the Yankees, too. One is Whit Merrifield. He can essentially become the new upgraded Tyler Wade. Even though he's a righty, he still plays infield and outfield. He's one of the top base stealers in the major leagues, and he's a good contact hitter and a good leader and teammate. So it's something that the Yankees could do well with. And the other one is catching prospect MJ Melendez, who's blocked by Salvador Perez, who still has several years of control left and on his contract. Deservedly so. He signed a big contract, and he was out-of-worldly this past year with 48 home runs and other godly stats. But he's a great backstop, too. But Melendez is their number 4 prospect, okay? And he's also a top 100 Major League overall prospect. So he would represent a good fit to replace Gary Sanchez, even if he's, just learning on the fly this year and whatnot, and he takes over in 2022, or even shuffles with Kyle Higashioka or somebody like that. He would represent the young, dynamic backstop that the Yankees would have several years of control with. So he's a gettable piece, in my opinion. The Yankees would have to give up, again, any one of these packages. They'd have to give up at least a decent prospect, or maybe, or a top 10 and a top 20, as well as another major league piece or two. So, but he'd be worth the get. He'd be worth the risk, okay? And keep in mind, too, the Yankees are heavy duty up the middle in terms of prospects. They're very thin at catching, and they're very thin at starting pitching. So that's why these trades bring in a starting pitcher and a catcher to a certain degree. In every single trade, you're getting one or the other or both. So because of the Yankees' thinness at the farm, they're good at developing minor league relief pitchers into the major leagues and position players, but not starting pitchers and catchers. So just something to keep in mind. So Kansas City Royals, that's the second team. The last team is the Miami Marlins. Okay, these guys are a sleeper pick in my mind for a lot of things this offseason, so I will keep an eye on them. They're number 3. They have the number 3 farm in baseball overall. They have a boatload of pitching prospects. They also have a boatload of pitching prospects at the major league level. Okay, and they've already said that they want to increase their offensive profile here. So, and they've already done so a little bit this offseason. They've made some pretty shrewd and pretty good moves, but they still have a ways to go. And 2 guys that I haven't targeted are Trevor Rogers and Jesus Luzardo, young, controllable starting pitchers, and who are not at their very, very, very top, but they're on that second tier, who could also represent good fits for the Yankees. Saying if there's any way the Yankees can get both of them, this would probably be the most expensive package because generally young starting pitcher costs a little bit more to acquire in a trade, but I'd be willing to do it. I'd be willing to do it. And again, this might cost an Oswaldo Cabrera and more pieces, obviously, a Gleyber Torres and whatever else, but you do trades like this. These are the types of values you want to get back in trade, and, whether it be a starting pitcher and a catcher, or 2 starting pitchers, or a position player and a catcher, these trades represent needs being filled for the Yankees. So I would do any one of these. And again, don't know the exact parameters of what the trade package would be, but you'd obviously have to frontline them with probably a top 5 prospect. And not that I want to move Oswald Peraza, but if you can get a package like this, particularly if he's not already moved or doesn't get moved for Matt Olson, then these are the types of packages that would represent, a package of a return, and you put in a kid like that. But if he stays here and becomes a shortstop, I'm totally fine with that as well, because I think he'll turn into a great shortstop here with the Yankees. But he's a place that's he's a piece that's movable, I should say, because there's so many other shortstop prospects with the Yankees. And they're going to be bringing in Roderick Arias. Well, they're projected to bring in Roderick Arias, who's the number 1 international free agent. So they're just going to replace him with another one. So trading from their depth, just like the Marlins would be trading from their depth to address holes of need, positions of need. So these 3 teams represent the best fits for trades. Obviously, I'm not including Oakland with the Matt Olson. That's been discussed for months now. So, but these right here represent opportunities for Brian Cashman to fill multiple positions at once in a trade, and he generally does a solid job with multi-positional trades, multiplayer trades. So, let me know what you think. Give me some feedback in the comments, and let me know if there's any other teams that you think would represent good fits and who you might target in these trades. Talk to you next time.